The students this week have been asked to create Annie charts for each of the witnesses in our case. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of a background on the assignment and what the purpose of this is and how to do it. And as I explained to the students in class this week, mock trial is a battle of the stories. And what that means is when they go into the trial that day, they will either be representing the prosecution or the defense, and it will be their job to tell that side of the story. As we know from the things we studied during our current events strand in first semester, every story has two sides. There's a clear bias on either side. And so regardless of which side they're on, they will be required to tell that side of the story. This year, our case is State versus Peak. And so when we look at the different characters that they're going to be dealing with, on the defense side, Dale Peak is the defendant. Okay, the other two witnesses that will be testifying on his behalf are Leslie Harris, who's the owner, the trainer, the dog trainer, who convinced him into buying the Lupo Hound, and then his neighbor, Gene Potter. Those are the defense witnesses. On the prosecution side, we have Chris Holliday, who was the friend of Brian Hamilton. And we have Pat DeMuro, who is the president of CDAP. And then we have the police officer, Terry Culbertson. Okay, so these are the people who are going to tell the story through their testimony. So the way that we use the Annie chart as a tool, and I think this is so cool, it's such a wonderful implementation of the Annie chart that we learned through our literature studies in first semester. What they'll do is they'll create their chart. And we know from studying this that A stands for affirmative, N stands for negative, and I stands for interesting. Well, the way that we can adapt this for use with mock trial is affirmative becomes what information in this column can be used to help this side's story. Negative would be, what could the other side use about this witness's testimony that would help them? So it becomes a tool for the attorneys on each side to figure out their line of questioning. The affirmative column then becomes information that would be used to create direct examination questions. And then anything in the negative column becomes information that could be used for cross-examination questions. And each team, no matter whether they're prosecution or defense, will be responsible for direct exam questions, and those would be of their own witnesses. So for the prosecution, they would do direct examination questions for these three witnesses. The defense would do direct exam for these three witnesses. And then conversely, the prosecution will cross-examine these three, and the defense will cross-examine these three. So the assignment for this week is to create an Annie chart for each witness. So let's just take Chris Holliday as our example. You would look at his witness statement and line by line, as he goes through his testimony, figure out, okay, is this something that his team, the prosecution, could use to help him tell the story? Or, on the other hand, is this something that the defense might be able to use against him? And so I'll just take the first two things that we come to in his witness statement. In the first paragraph, he mentions that he's a 13-year-old 7th grader at Briarcliff Junior High School. And I would say that that might be something that you could even just put in the interesting column. He is 13 years old. And you may be able to figure out a way that could move into either one of these to be used for him or against him later, but I would say maybe at this point it's just interesting. But at the end of that paragraph, he says, when he lived in Forestburg County, he got in some trouble because he stole stuff from a record shop. Okay, that is something that's not going to be anything that his team is going to want brought out, but it certainly could discredit him. And so you would want to put that information in the negative column for Chris Holliday. So, stole from record store, spent time in juvenile home. Okay, and then as you read on, one of the first people he met when he moved to Briarcliff was Brian Hamilton, so you could probably put that information in the A column. Best friend, or maybe not best friend, let's just say good friends of Brian and Jesse. And we know that they are the three boys who were involved in the incident that happens later. So anyway, this is just the beginning of this Annie chart for Chris Holliday, but this is how you would proceed through it. You would continue to write things that could be used as he tells his side of the story for the prosecution side in the A column. And again, if you run into anything in his testimony that could be used against him, it would go in the negative column. And then you're just going to create one of these charts for each one of the 6 witnesses. For Dale Peak, even though he's a defense witness, you still would use the A column to detail the things that would allow his team to tell his side of the story. And then you would use anything that could possibly be used against him would go in the N column. And that's how you use the Annie chart. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. I hope this has been helpful.